Thank you for listening to Human Monsters. So far, I've recorded episodes that are mostly about human monsters who have received some amount of media focus. I would also like to hear personal stories about monsters that are not as well known. Is there a monster who has affected your life or the life of somebody close to you whose actions as a plot device would amount to an interesting story? If so, send an email to mentalhygiene@gmx.com and we'll discuss it. Thank you. In this episode, I explore one woman's experience of being abused in an institution. An institution where she was supposed to receive treatment as part of an effort to relieve her of her mental health struggles. The traumas in question occurred in a psychiatric care facility that has now been incorporated into a conglomerate called Humber River Hospital in Toronto, Canada. She was assaulted physically by a patient and sexually by a nurse. She also encountered endless neglect and a complete lack of empathy in the staff. Since then, she has fought against legal and medical authorities in an effort to stimulate a legal resolution to the institutional collusion that enabled the abuse to occur, not just to her, but to other female patients. All right, thank you very much, Destiny, for doing the show with us. So what I'm going to start with is I'm wondering what is your background with mental health? What brought you to the institution in the first place?
Excuse me. So I had been on clonazepam for a good number of years for generalized anxiety disorder. Also, I suffer from complex PTSD, and I was recommended through a counselor and my family physician that I needed to get off the medication because it was actually causing me some issues with my health. So I decided, instead of spending a couple of years trying to wean off the medication, that I would prefer just to do it, basically cold turkey, be off it, and stop having the effects. So anyways, because it's a benzodiazepine, and the nature of this particular one, the concern is coming off of it cold turkey, you could have a seizure.
Yeah.
So basically, myself and with the help of the counselor, we found that actually the only place in Ontario, I'm in a small northern area of Ontario, and there were only two places. One was in Sudbury and the other one was in Toronto. At the time, it was Humber River. I knew it as Humber River Mental Hospital. It was when it was on, this was in 2012 that this occurred. And so it was at the old location that was on Hill Street, not at the new location that's now, I believe, on Wilson Avenue.
Yeah.
So basically, I self-admitted there to detox from this medication so that I could have a safe medical detox, in case of seizures, etc. So upon going in, discussion with my therapist was, I was warned that they would offer me a lot of medication.
Yeah.
And we discussed basically which medications were going to be safe for me and which weren't. And I actually have a really extensive history in pharmacology, 30 years actually as a certified pharmacy assistant. So I already knew my medication and et cetera going in. So basically I was going in with the impression I was only going to take medication that would stop seizures, which I was shocked when I got in there to find out that they were actually using a pretty antiquated medication, something called phenobarbital, was their medication of choice for detox patients for, I guess, to prevent seizures from happening. However, the amount that they administered is beyond ridiculous, overkill to say the least. Anyway, that's sort of what led me in there. Was I admitted myself in to have this safe detox. What I didn't realize is a number of things, starting with I didn't realize that I was going to be on a mental health ward. I thought I was going into some form of program and that I was fast tracking because it was suggested to me to go in through the emergency department on Church Street at the time, which I believe was also called Humber River as well. Mm-hmm. Humber River Regional Hospital, the one that currently exists, the new building. Mm-hmm. So there were 3 hospitals that were amalgamated when that hospital was built. I believe there was an emergency department on Church Street, which is how I admitted myself. And I was then transported over to Keel Street to the, at the time I thought it was just a hospital. Anyway, I was admitted into the 5th floor, which was I found when I got there was a mental hospital, which I was there for the weekend actually before detox even began. It was like, I actually thought, like you would not believe, to get myself admitted into this place that I, thought was going to be a safe place to come off, a medication that was making me sick, that I was opting to come off of.
And the trauma that you experienced that led to this history of taking medications and undergoing other treatments, would you be comfortable sharing what that was?
Yeah, I'm a survivor actually of many, many years of childhood sexual abuse at the hands of a father up until basically the age of around 11. And then was sexually assaulted by a half brother, sort of was the last of that. So I had been in therapy for a number of years, recovering from that. And it was that last 2 years of therapy where basically I was the only medication that I was on was this clonazepam that I wanted to come off. So I was basically sort of in the, I don't think you ever recover, but I was on a journey of healing and trying to recover from, the stuff that I had gone through as a child.
So before
No, go ahead.
So before your experience at Humber, the treatments had been reasonably effective?
Well, I was functional. Reasonably. I would say reasonably to some degree. Anybody that goes through, like, it wasn't just sexual abuse. My whole childhood was very, very traumatic in every way that you could even think of, from, any kind of neglect you can think of, physical abuse, mental abuse, survivor remorse and stuff. It wasn't just myself. I had, there's lots of other siblings that were affected, etc.
And in social media, you've mentioned that in your experience in Humber, you had yet another experience with sexual abuse. So could you tell me and my listeners the story of that incident?
That happened while I was at Humber?
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, there was 2 incidents. So I was there for a total of 16 days. So I just, on my 7th day there, my 7th night there, sorry, I just need a second.
Yeah.
Unexpected emotion coming up here.
Take your time, it's fine.
So I was attacked and beaten and sexually assaulted by a involuntary male patient that was not supposed to actually be on the side that I was on. I'm sure I know you have a history that you would be familiar with, that in a mental health ward they would have a voluntary and a involuntary side. The more dangerous people that are at risk to harm themselves or others are one side, etc. Only at this place there was, as some of the nurses referred to it, spillover on the weekends.
Yeah.
And so some of the more dangerous people would be in that side. At any rate, I was attacked and very badly beaten by this individual. I don't feel comfortable going into like a whole pile of detail. Needless to say that I was traumatized. Like I don't even think I knew what hit me until, I don't even know when I knew what hit me, before I got hit again. 7 days later.
Did the second incident involve another patient?
No, the second incident was actually a black male nurse that was there.
Oh, wow. And so he was a nurse. Did you get the sense that other staff members were aware of this behavior and enabled it, or do you think he was secretive about it?
I wouldn't say that other staff members knew about it. What I would say just basically as that the place was a really bad joke. God only knows what else went on. I mean, the other things that I saw while I was there, like the neglect, was just unbelievable. So I can't say they knew that specifically happened to me, but I don't think there was a lot of concern up on that particular ward about concern about what was happening really with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Very little supervision, very little standard, very little, just for an example, there would be female patients that would be, some of them would be in gowns, some of them wouldn't have underpants on, patients sitting in their own feces, a person urinating themselves right in the lunchroom, at the lunch table, and just be, somebody who was, almost catatonic kind of thing. Mm-hmm. People not being allowed to have showers, just, again, a lot of neglect and racism. I heard whispers, I was being referred to as white privilege. It was just ridiculous.
Did the general disposition of the staff, did it strike you as uncaring and detached and disinterested?
Oh, absolutely. I would say that I probably, and I encountered a lot of nurses during that time that I was there. I probably only encountered maybe 2 that I felt that, were the kind of people that should be in the profession, that showed caring and compassion, and, where there were others that you could just tell, like, you very much had a sense that there was just this big umbrella that if you were on that floor, you were worthless. That, like, without knowing my history at all, I couldn't believe how I was treated. And not just how I was treated, it was disgusting to watch. And I think that was probably the hardest part. And it's probably at the same time is the reason I survived there as long as I did, was just a need to try to protect some of the other women that were there, like just to try to help.
Yeah.
Like, I think I just was in some kind of autopilot. It's like I literally, the second that I knew physically I could handle whatever withdrawal there might be or whatever I was going to have to deal with, that I would be able to get out of there. Also, I had an issue trying to get out of there because I didn't have a ride. I mean, I'm from a small town. I got a ride there from an ex-husband. Mm-hmm. And was dropped off for what I thought was going to be a few days of detox. It wasn't, sure didn't turn out to be what I was expecting.
Were any other women on that ward assaulted in the way that you were?
Yes, there was. There was one other woman, and I can't really say any more than that, and I maybe probably shouldn't even have said that. But there is 100%, one for sure. And I mean, there's no question in my mind that there had to be others, because we're not just talking about we're talking about a staff member, and we're talking about a patient, both of who could still be running around in that sector. And he could still be working at that hospital. This patient could be reoffending. Like, unfortunately, I don't know either one of their names. I was able to provide the police with every name that it wasn't. As far as nurses that attended me, as far as, you know, the nurse goes, like I reported this to the police 2 years ago. And that, you know, that's probably another segment.
Well, how far did that go? Did they investigate it?
Well, I forced an investigation. Mm-hmm. When I initially investigated it, again, another long story, my rights were violated. I wasn't, they didn't allow me. I had prepared a written statement. Yeah. And they literally refused to allow me to read that as means of reporting my statement. Mm-hmm. So I was actually forced to to sit there and, tell them about both, which later on I ended up, demanding to make another statement, which I provided in writing. And again, at that point, they tried to deny my right to do it that way as well. It was a nightmare. I literally had to fight them every step of the way. I reported on June 22nd of 2017. And I'm going to say by October that same year, I had heard 2 days after I reported it, the officer called me and told me that the case was going to be parked due to basically unless somebody else was going to come forward. And this was before anything was like, you can't investigate something in 2 days. Like, she chose to not believe me. She chose to judge me right from the get-go, mm-hmm. which I felt that very much so when, like, just through the whole process. Like, even just to report it, I was traumatized. Like, every dealings I had with them, I'd be traumatized for months after with the police, just trying to get them to investigate it. So after getting that call 2 days later, as I said, traumatized by that because I couldn't believe, I can't tell you how many times I fell down in getting ready to try to report it, to have the strength to try to come forward and report it. And to finally report it and then to get a reception like that was just, I was, devastated and thrown down yet again.
As if it wasn't bad enough that you had to keep reliving it like that.
Oh, exactly. So by October same year, I started to put pressure on and basically said, like, you know what, you guys have done nothing. And I actually spoke to a lawyer who, advised me to do some things to try to, basically force them into an investigation, which is what I did. And I provided them, I can't even tell you how many emails with names of the nurses that they would need to speak to, situations, patients' names, dates, times, like so much information. And so finally, so that would have been October. I want to get my date right because it was the end of December, start of January of 2019. I actually filed complaint with the Toronto Police Services and requested that I have a meeting with the investigating officer in charge, with her and her superior. At which time I did go, and I can tell you that was, and it also was to make a second statement, and I have everything on recording, unbeknownst to them, until if they happen to listen to this right now. I have every detail of the conversation, including the conversation that they had when I left the room. I had taken my sister with me for this meeting as a means of emotional support. which they tried to block her from coming in right off the get-go, again, which would have been a violation of my rights not to allow me to have a support person there. They spent hours trying to talk me out of, again, providing the written statement, and, it wasn't going to be the same as the first, and, it didn't matter how much argument I made. I still, even in those moments had to fight in the end, still to be able to say what it was that I wanted to say in the way I wanted to say it. And when I was out of I was losing my patience with the detective because she was lying through her teeth. And when we went to step out of the room, actually my sister said, I need a minute with her. And right away the officer spoke up and he's like, oh, well, we'll leave the room. And I'm thinking, yeah, I guess you will, so you can record what we say. Meanwhile, I had a recorder in my bag, which I left in the room when we stepped outside. And I was referred to as a quack. You just have to put up with some effing quacks. And that's unfortunate that you do. And, going on about how she couldn't believe how, just using the word parked had, blown this whole thing up. And, he was going on about how this was going well for them. And, I didn't realize this was going on until I, listened to the recording afterwards. And I was so thankful that I had left that bag in there and got that part of the recording as well. Mm-hmm. So, it was so classic that they didn't believe me. They didn't want to believe me. And then I really pissed them off by basically forcing them into an investigation, and no doubt in embarrassing them. So they basically did this tiny little, I don't know, 2 month, tried to make it look good on paper investigation before just slamming it shut. It was right about the year point, I guess. And the problem is at that point, I was corresponding with Humber, the hospital. I was corresponding with the Ontario College of Nurses, and everybody was cooperating with me right up until she decided that she was going to close the investigation. And in doing so, informed the hospital they didn't need to talk to me anymore, and did the same with the Ontario College of Nurses. And any hope I had of, because I was doing all this legwork on my own because they weren't. Mm-hmm. She told me that she was told to park the investigation by a Crown attorney, and she wouldn't give me his name. And I had to fight to get his name. And numerous emails later, emails that I sent to him, I come to learn that no, he didn't. He had nothing to do with it. They had a telephone conversation, and by the date that he told me that the conversation was, I knew that it wasn't until after I started this investigation.
And it's occurred to me that maybe the police's attitude about this may have been colored by the stigma that surrounds mental illness.
Oh, big time. Oh my gosh. It's the second that she looked at my my hospital records, mm-hmm. and her comment to me was, oh, you were on a lot of medication. I'm like, well, define a lot of medication. Because I was only on the one medication when I was in there to come off of another. Yeah, it was a hell of a medication, mm-hmm. but she made it sound as though I was on, and the only other record she had was just before I came to report this, went to Toronto to report this in 2017. Just prior to that, I had been awake for, I think, 7 days. I couldn't sleep. I was so stressed out trying to figure out, exactly how I was going to go about doing this, and, what it was going to mean for my family to find out, and, overwhelmed to the point where I actually ended up in the hospital. And I was in there for, I want to say, upwards to 14 days or something like that. And now that was just as a result of getting ready to try to hit this and report this, right? Mm-hmm. And so she looked at those records, and that, I believe, is what she based her whole opinion on. It's just, even when I called the very first time I started to try to inquire about where I needed to go to report this and etc. I could, they didn't even want me to come. First I was told, oh, just report it in your hometown. And, I did try to report it in my hometown, which I got turned down and told to go to Toronto. I went to 2 different precincts in Toronto before somebody would finally take my statement. Like, it was a nightmare. Just even trying to report it, like.
And the medications you were taking, they're not the kind that produce psychotropic effects, right? There are no hallucinations or anything of that sort.
The medication that they had me on while I was in the hospital there.
Yeah, or that you've taken at all. Yeah,
phenobarbital.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I wouldn't say hallucinations. Very sedating, mm-hmm. for sure. I mean, I knew immediately that I was high. I actually had gone. I looked at myself in the mirror. And I thought, oh my God. Like, this is not necessary, right? Like, when they first started giving it to me, and I actually immediately, like, when they started, I refused medications, and I was cutting, like, what they were giving me, I was actually cutting in half. Like, I was refusing a certain amount of dosage because I knew that what they were giving me was way too much. Mm-hmm. And I didn't care, and I made it clear from the beginning, I don't care if I'm sick, I don't want to have a seizure and die, right? Yeah. That's the only reason I was there. It's not because I, can't handle something that might be difficult, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, no, I wasn't on enough of anything to cause hallucinations or anything of that sort.
So clearly, this experience must have created a serious setback in your progress in healing. Before you got to that hospital, things were moving forward, and that must have been a significant reversal for you.
Oh, I was like being hit by a truck. In fact, it was years before I even knew what hit me. Exactly. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I knew what hit me, but it was, I just like, basically from the first time that it happened when I was in that hospital, I just went into some kind of autopilot survival mode, and it was a good number of years before I ever even came out to see what was going on, for lack of a better way to put it. I didn't go back to work. I'm on currently still on disability, and that's, I had been on disability for a year and a half, and I was like, as I was explaining, was what I felt like, the last leg of my healing journey. Not that it ever ends, but I felt like I was headed to a really, really good place. And so, yeah, that set me back. Well, it set me back the whole time. I mean, it set me back from the day it happened,
Yeah. And have you found a new organization or a new treatment that has been effective, that has enabled you to start making progress again?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. About 3 years ago, I discovered a doctor, actually here in town, that runs cognitive behavioral therapy groups, mm-hmm. Along with mindful meditation.
Yeah.
And so basically for the last 3 years, I've just taken back to back of these cognitive behavioral therapy courses. Mm-hmm. And the CBT is as important as the meditation part of it. The combination of it changed my life, as well as finally getting a really good psychiatrist, getting a proper diagnosis. And I am currently on some medication. I think I probably always will be. I don't know. I think it's up and down, right? It's, I'm not on up and I'm not in a down right now. I'd say I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. I'm dealing with some family issues, some, health crisis in my, my significant other's side of the family, etc. So basically right now, just a lot of other things going on. So it's not my major focus, but it's always, my big thing is trying to balance healing and also not giving up my fight to, try to find others to come forward and, have these individuals found. Yeah, like I just can't even believe that there has to be. I know there's others, and I mean, it took me 5 years to come forward, so it's one of those things. Who knows how long it might take, but there's just no way there aren't others. Like,
of course,
I'm sorry, I'm not that special, right? I was old, like 45 years old when it happened to me. It's not like I was some young hot. Do you know what I mean? Like these people aren't picky. The nurse obviously was targeting detox patients, right? People at their very, I mean, wow, detox patients, never mind. I mean, there's women on that floor that were catatonic. I mean, who knows? I mean, I feel like detox were targeted because I know that myself and one other detox patient was targeted. So I just felt that is a very good chance, that it was detox specific.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to believe that the quality of care was so poor in that ward, and in such a modern era too. Like, it sounds like something maybe you'd expect to encounter in the 1930s or something, and yet
it's just, yeah, it felt like that. It really did. I can't tell you how. It was like the second I got off the elevator, off the stretcher, and set foot in that ward, something inside me just dropped. I knew that I should not have come there. The same as I knew my rapist when I looked him in the eyes. I knew he was going to get me.
Wow.
I just knew.
And the individuals who sexually abused you when you were young, were they ever brought to justice? Did you tell anyone what they had done, or?
Not until it was. I mean, it didn't come completely to surface until after my dad was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, it was talked about and rumored in the family over the years. Because I have a brother that I share a birthday with, not the same year, but the same day.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, sexually abused as a child as well, and beaten and etc. And so before my dad died, that did come to light, but no charges were ever laid, or, I don't even think my mom believed it at the time. I don't know. She was pretty messed up herself. So no, he never paid for what he did.
What about the half brother?
No, he never paid, but I like to think he probably pays a bit every day. I hope. I confronted him actually via email, about probably just prior to reporting this, actually. And denial, of course, and anger and blah, 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 whatever. Honestly, I just needed it. I tried to get him to apologize. I tried to get him to admit it. I was trying to, in a sense, honor my mom's memory, that she wouldn't want, things to sort of be left the way they were. And for some reason, I felt like I needed to forgive him or something before he died, kind of thing. He's older than I am. Has heart issues or whatever. But so, yeah, I was trying to take the high road anyways. As it turns out, I had to, really let him have it. I had to really unleash all the anger and hate I felt towards him for all the years I suffered because of what he did to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to kind of close the door a little bit more on that one.
Yeah.
It's like, what do I do now, right? It's like, it just feels unfathomable to even bother to try to press charges, Like, it would be such an incredibly not funny joke.
Do you have PTSD? Do you get flashbacks and nightmares?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have complex CPS. Yeah, sorry, complex PTSD. So
And
yeah, it comes and it goes, right? Like I don't suffer every single day with it. I have, insomnia. Yeah, I suffer from that on the daily, and anxiety. Like there's a lot of things that I suffer on the daily, but nightmares, flashbacks, all those sorts of things are one of those things that are just a part of my life. They come, they go. I've suffered from PTSD as long as I can remember, literally.
and has that have your experience with sexual abuse made it difficult to enter into an intimate situation with a man, like the whole, with trust issues and everything?
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, sorry. A little caught off guard with that particular question. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, obviously, I mean, I won't ever feel safe ever anywhere with anybody again as long as I live. I mean, once my father violated me, my brother violated me. I was violated in a fucking hospital. A
Yeah,
female police detective judged me and didn't believe me. Where would you ever feel safe again? Ever. Ever.
yeah, exactly. In the thing, yeah, that's the thing about abuse. I think very few people ever completely trust again, no matter what form the abuse takes. Even if it's just verbal abuse, like which I experienced a lot growing up, and so I have social anxiety that always kicks in, particularly with
Mm.
people I don't know very well. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Scars. I mean, it all scars you, right?
yeah, and I see it seems to me as well the fact that you weren't able to report the sexual abuse incidents right away. Isn't there an element of confusion that comes along with sexual abuse? Like it's like almost like there's an unreality to it. Like this can't possibly be happening, and it
Oh my God.
leaves you disoriented afterwards.
Right. Like in reference to the adult ones at Humber, you mean?
Yeah, but also I imagine with your father as well. Like that must have been really disorienting. Like what's happening here?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's something that I'll be unraveling for the rest of my life. I mean, my father was a known atheist. He sexually assaulted me while reciting "Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep."
Wow.
Like I can't even say any further than that because I'll just
Yeah. Yeah, I
like
understand.
that's you know what I'm saying. So like I've literally had every safe, from religion to police to healthcare providers to, do you know what I'm saying? Like, so
So you must
yeah.
feel um, a drive to be self-reliant, but that can also leave you feeling very alone, I imagine.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm really lucky that I finally, the person that I'm with now,
Hmm.
I can't imagine life before him. I can't imagine life after him. I like that there would be another individual that could even come close to trying to understand and accepting, respecting, and of every aspect of the way I am because of what I've been through.
Were you nervous about disclosing that information to him?
Um, the childhood stuff, not so much, but the other stuff, yeah, I was pretty nervous about that. In fact, um, yeah, that was really, he kind of almost sort of learned as I was kind of going through trying to get ready to really face it and report it. And it was pretty messy.
Hmm.
Uh, but like totally stood by me through all of it, and was just super understanding about what I was going through because, I required a lot of alone time, a lot of solitude, a lot of, please, I needed to scream it out. I needed, stuffed my emotions about what happened to me as a child for my whole life and it's nearly killed me, so it was like, had to come to the realization that in regards to this last thing that, well, not just this last thing, that just things period, that if I need to, experience those emotions, you have to, because you'll die keeping them inside.
Sure. And so your approach to this situation legally has been pure uphill. Are you still pursuing that, or have you gotten to a point where it's just too painful, too daunting?
Well, it's just kind of, I like to refer to it as that I'm on a break. I'm just on a break. It's never going to be over.
Yeah.
It just feels like I fight, and then I fall down, and I have to, it takes me time to recover. And I did start to pick this up again a number of months ago, and had reached out again to the Ontario College of Nurses to request that they open it back up. And I also went and took a further step in the complaints process with the Toronto Police Department, which I thought on the onset of that this person was going to be helpful. And I just got tossed off to a couple of other people, and, they almost, embarrassingly for them, I feel, and laughably, blew me off rather quickly and said, that they looked at it and everything looked fine. And I'm thinking, you know what, really, I have to fight the police right now. I have to fight the police too. I have to fight the hospital. I have to fight the police. I have to fight the Ontario College. I can't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, it's hard. It's hard to fight powerful people. That's for sure.
Oh, it is. And, aside from a tiny bit of legal advice that somebody was kind enough to, pro bono sort of thing, help me as far as he could. But there was only so much that he could do. And I literally did everything that he told me to do on my own. I mean, I prepared all the emails. I fought the good freaking fight.
Yeah.
And I'm not done yet. I'm still not done. I mean, I've sent registered letters to the CEO, the current CEO of Humber Regional Hospital, and she, and taking pictures of it. I know who signed for the letters. I have an arsenal here of stuff that could probably help me in some way.
Mm-hmm. But
I'm a one-woman army and tired of fighting right at the moment. I'm just tired. Like I said, I'm on a break.
Have you attempted to perhaps link up with a mental health advocate of some sort?
Yeah, there hasn't really been a lot of help that way. I reached out to the ombudsman at one point, but certain things had to have taken place before they could intervene. And again, every single thing that you try to do is such an unbelievably long process. Even trying to report to the Ontario College of Nurses. Like I had to go, like I just broke the friggin' rules. I sent them emails that I sent registered right to their office, like right to the people, knowing that we had no choice but to respond. Nobody wants to be bothered with it when it's 2012. And the first thing the police said to me was, that hospital's not even here anymore. That hospital was torn down. That's when I was even just initially trying to find out where to report. So you're getting told that, okay, well, because that hospital was torn down, it never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Those people from that hospital are now at your hospital. You may not be that old hospital, but you are still you know what I'm saying? It's still them. It's just in a different building.
Have you, throughout your activities on the internet, have you met other people who've had these experiences? And if so, has that been therapeutic at all?
Do you mean as far as, while in a mental health place?
Yeah, institutional abuse,
No.
that kind of thing?
No, I haven't actually. Initially I was advised to get right off social media. Mm-hmm. When I initially reported and so forth, because there was concerns that I was probably pissing some people off in some pretty high places. that would not necessarily want what I have to say to be common knowledge, and that I should, be aware of that.
Oh, of course not. Yeah.
So I basically stayed right off of social media until whenever I opened up this Twitter account. And this is the only outlet that I've had or used, apart from the fact that I have, sent numerous emails to every news station, like newspapers, newscasts, like anybody that I could think of that might run this story, offering to name names, offering to appear, offering, like, somebody help me find other people inside. Like, I don't care about myself at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't want to have to feel every single day of my life responsible that I didn't do everything I could to help somebody find these people that could still be harming people every single day, every single second I'm awake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like one way to make it more effective would be if you actually did start to disclose your identity or appear on television or something. But I guess
I can't even get anybody to want to do that.
Hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, or at least I don't know how to go about it, and perhaps I'm going about it the wrong way, but I've done everything I know to do. I mean, I've looked up, whatever I can find on the internet, who it is that I need to contact to say, hey, I'll tell my story. I sent a huge email to Robin Doolittle, thinking in the aftermath of Me Too and everything, that maybe she might, and then I repeatedly, and just, nothing. I just don't get any response from anybody.
Wow. I don't know.
And then I get tired and I have to stop fighting for a while.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I can see it would be hard to let go, but on the other hand, I guess as long as you pursue it, it's just going to keep causing you an enormous amount of stress.
And that's the whole thing, right? And that's what I struggle with all the time, is balancing that.
Have you ever heard of Jimmy Savile?
I don't think I have.
There's another episode of this show, Human Monsters, where I did an episode about him. He was a TV presenter in England, and he raised all this money for charity. And the institutions he raised it for, hospitals and schools, because they were so grateful for the money, they allowed him to sexually abuse their patients and students. And there's a number of first-person accounts that, in audio that I brought into the episode. So I don't know if that'd be something you'd be interested in listening to, but perhaps some of those people experience some similar feelings.
Mm-hmm. What was his name again? Sorry.
Jimmy Savile, last name Savile. Savile.
Okay, I did listen to a couple of your podcasts.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to ask you what your history is, if I might.
Well, in terms,
I couldn't find a thing on you except for this podcast.
Yeah. It's well, in terms of abuse, I didn't have much in the way of sexual abuse, but I was physically and emotionally abused growing up, and so there's the social anxiety. I used to have much worse problems with depression and anxiety, but it's gotten better over the years because. Apparently the human brain kind of goes through a stabilization process when you're in your 30s, whereas when you're young, it's still growing, it's still adapting to new stages of growth. So in the process, I'm enjoying more stability now, but there's still the anxiety, and that's affected my health in all sorts of ways. Like, it can affect your physical health. I have diabetes, and anxiety can actually keep your blood sugar running high. It can give you high blood pressure as well. So I don't know how to overcome it. It's a really hard thing to do because the thing is,
cognitive behavioral therapy with mindful meditation is how you overcome it.
I have a book about CBT. The only thing is, I find when you throw logic at mental illness, it doesn't stick. That's what I find. Like consciously, logically, I know a lot of the thoughts I have are irrational. They don't make any sense. but it's not enough. That doesn't make it all go away. But
No.
I have heard
Right.
about the benefits of meditation. A lot of people,
Hmm.
like the director David Lynch, said that he had been full of anger for a long time, and then he started doing that every day, and then that went away. He was more at peace.
Oh, it definitely is. Yeah, it's life changing. I wish I could, practice it every moment of every day, and I would, be a big fat liar if I said I did. But it definitely has changed my life. That is the one thing that was the game changer for me in my mental health, was definitely discovering all of that. Right, just learning what the mind traps are, and at least trying to change some of the negative self talk. And for me, it has because my big fight my whole life has been anxiety. So when you say that, I can like totally resonate with that.
Yeah,
Right in the pit of my stomach, and I didn't think I would ever find anything ever that would help with that. But
yeah.
being,
Does it
being
affect?
my
Sorry, does it affect you
sorry.
when? Does it affect you when you're in the presence of men? Like, what is it for you? What is it like for you to meet men now?
I Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, it's not like I have a partner, right? So I'm not, I live in a small town, and so it's not like I have the occasion to run into and have to meet a whole whack of men.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think certain types of men trigger a certain reaction in me, the fear or whatever. But like men in general, I don't know, for the grace of, I don't know how I've managed that. I don't hate or fear all of them, but I don't. Maybe because the brother I love dearly was a victim. And I'm not talking about the one that assaulted me, but the other one.
Yeah,
Um, but for whatever reason, no, I don't. I don't have an issue like with men per se. I don't like fear them all or anything. I get a certain vibe from certain people, and that scares me. It doesn't, male, female, whatever. Everybody just doesn't always feel safe. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess different people react differently. Like I once heard about a woman who she has that fear of men. If she's in the grocery store and a man gets in line behind her, she'll leave the store. Um,
yeah,
I guess some people
I
are
think
just more
I cope
sensitive to
pretty
them.
well.
Yeah, that's
Sorry, I was
good.
just gonna say, I think considering everything that I've been through, I cope pretty well.
Yeah, that's good. So are you not? Are you going to go back to work soon, or have you returned to work?
I would like to return to work sometime.
Mm-hmm.
There's still so much anxiety surrounding it. It's almost hard for me to even think about it, but I do think about it a lot, and I do definitely want to. Um, I'm just not sure exactly what it is I want to do.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be to go back to what I did do. I think I want definitely to be in the field of helping. I just haven't really exactly figured out where I would be best utilized, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this interview.
Out of this interview, the one thing I would hope to accomplish is it to reach listeners of where it happened, when it happened,
Yeah.
so that people know going in what to
Mm-hmm.
watch out for. And also, 'cause I know there's others out there wondering who else this has happened to.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure there's somebody else just like myself that's somewhere waiting for somebody else to come forward so that somebody can finally be held accountable.
So Humber River Regional Hospital, is that's not where you went, obviously. So what was the?
Well,
Yeah.
it was the Humber River Mental Hospital.
Uh,
I mean, even if you look it up on the internet, I think the only difference is I don't think it said regional.
mm-hmm. Humber River. Okay, I'll look that up then.
It's 2175 Keel Street is the old address, if that helps.
Okay, I'll look that up then.
Because the way I figure it, I mean, for a long time I was concerned about naming the hospital. They might sue me. Sue me for what?
Yeah. Right.
It didn't happen. You go, okay, well, I'm having a hard time proving it did. I figure they would have to prove it didn't. So, and besides that, I've got nothing to take away from me. So,
And it usually takes a scandal to instigate these kinds of big changes.
Something's got to change somewhere. At the level of the hospitals, that the patients could be at that kind of risk. Obviously, there's still today a big problem with that, and the police and how they handle it. That's just disgusting. Sickening, absolutely, completely sickening. It's no wonder that nobody comes forward. What is the point? So that you can be traumatized and re-traumatized and shamed and made to feel worse. And, some people don't come back from that shit emotionally even. Like, I consider myself to be a pretty strong person, and every time that I had to encounter them, they nearly killed me emotionally.
Yeah, it looks like that hospital is no longer open. I think they built condos there or something.
Yeah, so where it is now is on Wilson Avenue, Humber River Regional Hospital. So the hospital that they tore down, and I think I mentioned to you that there was also an emergency department on Church Street. And I can't remember what the third, but all three of them were amalgamated and are now Humber River Regional Hospital. It's Humber River Regional Hospital is where I took my complaint. It's them that I fought.
Yeah, they amalgamated. Now it's just called Humber River Hospital. It's kind of like the University Health Network. So
right,
that's the umbrella organization, yeah.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you very much again.
Okay.
All right, take care.
All right, thank you.
Have a good day.
You as well.
Right, yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Human Monsters, brought to you by Leader One Podcast Network. I appreciate all the feedback I have gotten, as well as the subscriptions. Welcome to the show if you are a new listener. Another Leader One podcast is entitled The Phelan Foundation for Mental Health. The following is a sample of that podcast.
These feelings of anxiety, their experiences with depression, a lot of people don't feel as if they have a support system they can reach out to.
Trauma therapy, it's very important to pace the process of opening up. People need to be given space to be able to open up at their own time. It's on their own time, and if it's pushed too quickly, then people will feel overwhelmed.
Do you feel that that's a myth, that women are more emotional?
Oh, no, not at all. I think they both have more emotion and have more words for emotions and have more permission to express it. So it's across the board. Women have first are wired in terms of their brains to be like a bit more on the emotional side.
Friends that just weren't comfortable around somebody with a disability, and they couldn't cope. It was them that couldn't cope. I had changed, but I hadn't changed as a person. And so I had some people be very honest with me and say, I'm sorry, I can't handle this. But also ones that just stopped calling, and that was heartbreaking.
I make sure that the person is comfortable and comfortable with me, and that is essential. I have to make that person feel basically like they're back in the womb. I mean, they have to really be physically, mentally, spiritually comfortable.
While I believe that one of the worst things you can do is compare grief or use the words at least, I know that when it comes to pain and bereavement, we could have had it much, much worse. I do not lose perspective of that ever.
This is Morgan Rector, host of the Phelan Foundation for Mental Health podcast. This podcast features discussions with both mental health professionals and people like you and me who suffer the vicissitudes of the human condition. As a conglomerate, we educate the masses about the truth of mental illness and dispel misinformation and stigma. Available on iTunes and other platforms.